Hello and welcome to So What You're Saying Is. I'm Peter Whittle. Now, these are momentous and indeed possibly very depressing times for America. So I'm delighted that our guest this week is Nile Gardiner. He is the director of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation in Washington. He's here in London. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Peter.
That was a bit of a downer, the way I introduced the subject of America, but we can't really not talk about it because, for better or worse, it's right up there at the moment. Can I sort of start very broadly by asking you, because this is very much of the moment, what is your reaction to the Roe v. Wade overturning by the Supreme Court? Do you see it as a triumph or what?
Well, I do see this as very good news for America, actually.
Yeah.
Because this is a hugely significant decision by the Supreme Court. This is a decision that gives US states the right to defend the right to life, really. And this is what it's all about. I mean, this is, restoring the ability of states to determine their own position on this issue and to defend the sanctity of life. And I think that is very important. And so it is a momentous decision. It has been overwhelmingly supported by US conservatives. This is a big game changer for the United States. And I think this is a moment when we do celebrate the sanctity of human life, actually. And so, so I think this is a great decision by the Supreme Court. And I hope that the Biden administration fully respects this decision. And we've seen this decision being condemned now by senior US officials, from the president to the Secretary of State through to the US ambassador to the United Nations, condemning a decision by America's highest court. Almost unprecedented, I think, for US officials to be condemning a decision from the Supreme Court. This is actually democracy in action in America. This is democracy in America, and this is a decision that should be, fully respected, and it's a decision, of course, that is being, I think, wholeheartedly celebrated by American conservatives.
Were you surprised?
Actually, I wasn't surprised because, we certainly had an indication, early on, perhaps several weeks ago, that the Supreme Court was moving in this direction. So certainly there was public awareness of the likely decision, the likely ruling that would be in place. So it did not come as a surprise. Also, you have a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, 6-3, and so I think that this was a decision that was not in any way, I think, unexpected. With regard to the composition, the makeup of the Supreme Court, and the fact that the Supreme Court has become increasingly conservative in recent years.
It's sometimes difficult for people here to quite understand how it works in America, but of course, in a way, this is a legacy from President Trump, isn't it? When you have, as you say, senior people, the president down, basically criticizing the decision, whatever you think of the decision, there's a problem that the whole thing is going to be delegitimized, isn't there? I mean, isn't this in some ways what the left of the Democrats want too? Yeah, I mean, they are seeking to delegitimize, a ruling by the highest court of the land, and the Supreme Court, its decisions fundamentally matter, and the Supreme Court is an essential part of, democratic life in the United States. And I think it's unprecedented, actually, for a US administration to be, in my view, actively, condemning the decisions of the Supreme Court and actively undermining those decisions. So, I do think it's very disappointing to see this response from, the Biden presidency on the world stage, which actually, I think, undermines the United States globally, and I think that U.S. officials should not be, condemning or trying to undermine the decisions taken by, the independent judiciary in the United States. This is an essential part of what America is all about, the separation of powers here, and it's all about American democracy. So, I don't think you've seen in the past,
conservative U.S. Presidents actively, attacking the Supreme Court over decisions they have not liked. They haven't taken to the world stage to do that. I think it's bad form for Biden and Blinken and so on to be doing this. And it actually gives ammunition, to the enemies of the United States, like the Russians and the Chinese, who are recycling, the talking points being used by the, by the Biden, presidency here. Yes. So they're playing politics here with the Supreme Court decision. They should respect this decision and respect what democracy is all about in the United States, and not try to undermine, the independence of the judiciary.
What effect do you think it will have on the midterm elections coming up? They're coming up in November, aren't they? And until this point, the elections were sort of being seen as a possible triumph for resurgent Republicans, basically because of the appallingness of this administration. But this might well be possibly something that can be used by the Democrats very powerfully. What I can understand, there's pretty much sort of like even Stevens public support. You mentioned conservative support, but it's pretty evenly balanced, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an issue that energizes both sides of the political aisle. Yeah. This is a hugely important issue for US conservatives who feel very deeply about the importance of protecting human life, basically. And I think that in terms of the outlook over the coming years of the midterms, presidential elections, this will be part of the debate in those elections. I don't think this fundamentally in any way transforms the big picture, right? Which is that the U.S. left is in a great deal of trouble at this time, and most projections show that conservatives are going to do very, very well in the midterm elections. I don't think this latest Supreme Court decision alters in any way the trajectory of the big picture here. I mean, the United States is a nation at the moment, dominated, of course, by the left in the White House and in both houses of both wings of the United States Congress, and clearly the American people, I think, are reacting to what is the most left-wing presidency in American history, and a lot of Americans don't like what they see, and I think that you will see a big reaction to that, certainly in the midterm elections, and also most likely in the presidential election as well in 2024.
It's you say the most left-wing presidency. Also, America seems to culturally be about the most left, at least in my lifetime. It is quite extraordinary, it seems to me. You wrote recently about the disaster of this presidency. Can you elaborate a bit on that? I mean, yes. Obviously, we're talking about in terms of foreign policy. Yeah. Things were looking appalling with Afghanistan, but essentially, we're seeing an appalling presidency at a time where America as well seems to be beleaguered and in serious decline, aren't we? I mean, yes. Are they related or not really related?
I think we are looking at a United States that is in a serious state of decline. And the Biden presidency is, in my view, an extremely left-wing presidency. In fact, as I wrote in the Sunday Telegraph recently, it is the most left-wing presidency in American history. Yeah. This is a presidency led by left-wing ideologues, basically, and I think that what you are seeing in the United States is the rise of big government-style socialism, huge increases in government spending, a rise in taxes. You're also seeing, I think, on many other fronts, some very dangerous policies. De facto open borders policy on the southern border. You've had 2 million, illegal migrants trying to cross the border under the Biden presidency.
Just since Biden?
Yeah, just since Biden. Huge, staggering figures. And also, you have an administration that has, adopted ultra woke, far left, cultural policies. An administration that has, overseen a soaring rise in violent crime in America. Crime is out of control in many cities. You look at what is happening in, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, New York, even Washington D.C. Washington D.C. is now competing yet again to be the carjacking capital of the United States. Yeah. And so you have a rise in disorder in the United States as a result of left-wing policies, such as defund the police, for example.
How far has that gone actually now, defunding the police?
Yeah, I mean, it's been implemented in many American cities. There's been a public backlash against it that you've seen in cities such as Minneapolis, for example. But the reality is, criminals feel emboldened, the police feel let down. They don't think that local city governments or mayors have their backs in terms of dealing with violent crime. You have a culture of impunity that exists in cities in California, for example. You see that in places like San Francisco, where criminals are looting shops and so on, and they're not being jailed for this at all. They're getting away with these crimes. And so this culture of disorder is one of the signature signs of the Biden administration.
Yes.
American people, I think, increasingly have had enough.
Yes.
And they want to see a United States that is prosperous, safe, and secure. And that means a United States with an economy that works, where the tax rates are lowered, government spending is reduced, so we don't have the high monstrous rates of inflation that we do have right now. They want to see secure borders. They want to see schools that are free of political indoctrination. They do not want to see critical race theory being foisted onto public schools in America. And that was a big issue, for example, in the Virginia governor election.
What happened there exactly? Can you tell us?
So in Virginia, the Republicans took back control of the governorship under Governor Youngkin after he fought a campaign that was overwhelmingly about the issue of critical race theory in Virginia schools. And he conveyed the message there should be no room for these kinds of far-left Marxist-inspired policies that promote racial division, basically. There should be no room for racist policies in American schools. And he won an emphatic victory in Virginia as a result of this campaign, supported overwhelmingly by parents who had enough of these kinds of policies. And so, what you are finding is conservatives are standing firm on cultural issues, and they are, fighting for a United States that defends traditional values, that rejects, political indoctrination, schools and universities, that rejects racially charged policies, that promotes racial division. And critical race theory is a fundamentally racist doctrine. Yes. It's firmly rejected, of course, by conservatives in America. It's rejected here in the United Kingdom by the British government. It's outlawed it in schools. And of course, in practice, it has been difficult to completely, take it out of schools here in the United Kingdom. But I think the British government is making a strong effort to do so. And in the United States, of course, I mean, this is a big battleground issue, really. And most Americans believe in the greatness of their country. They're proud of their nation. They do not want to see the United States being torn apart by Marxist ideology. They do not want to see the United States being dragged down by rising, rampant, violent crime. They want to see law and order. And they want to see a healthy, stable US economy based upon free market capitalist principles. Capitalism, economic freedom works.
I mean, you've been in America now for 20 years?
Yes.
Has all that time been in Washington, or?
Yes, I mean, I've been in Washington throughout that time, but I've had a chance to travel across many parts of America to meet with a wide range of Americans from all over the country. Thankfully, a large number outside of the Washington Beltway, so living in sort of real America, and so I've had a chance to see a significant number of American states and to hear a whole range of perspectives from Americans across the country.
I mean, you talk about most Americans, they want these things, and I would agree. It seems to me. However, one can't sort of ignore that it does seem that on certain issues, when you're talking about polls, of course, but there are some issues which seem to show a shift in America's views. There was one particularly recently, which I think was something like 40% of people would not fight for the country. Or did you see that part? And it basically looked at Republicans and Democrats. Yes. I'm not sure whether it's 40% of Democrats or people, but either way, that seems quite a large amount. And I just wondered, are you surprised? You talk about the Marxist ideology, you talk about the woke ideology, particularly its gripped education. Are you surprised at the strength of it? I mean, that we've seen over the past, what, 5 years in America?
Yeah, I mean, it's very insidious. And, I think what is most dangerous at the moment is that, woke ideology, this sort of Marxist-inspired, deeply intolerant, nefarious sort of ideology that's sort of now swept into American culture in a big way. It's moved from, universities, for example, into the public schools. It's moved into corporate boardrooms. It's created a culture of fear. People are afraid to say what they think. People are afraid to exercise their right to free speech. It is, a culture of intimidation as well. But I think that, it has been advanced and strengthened as a result of the Biden presidency. You have a president who actively advances the woke agenda.
Yeah.
You have an administration that actively supports it. And so this has resulted, of course, in this huge conservative fight back against it. Because conservatives are saying they've had enough. They do not recognize, a United States that is, taken over by far left, Marxist-inspired, doctrine, actually. And you have an administration that actively, frankly, it defends a lot of this stuff. And so one fears for the future of the free world when you have, woke ideology dominating the world superpower. It then spreads across the rest of the world as well. I mean, here in the United Kingdom, you are seeing US woke ideology in a major way in many British institutions. From the BBC, for example, to Britain's top universities. So it's out there actually, and I think British people need to be aware of how dangerous this whole sort of ideology is.
No, this is bread and butter to us.
Yes.
We're talking about it all the time, and I can't work out quite who is in the worst position, America or Britain. It's at least there is a fight in America, and it's bigger. Whereas here you can capture a lot of things, and actually it's very contained, which is very worrying. Do you sort of see? Obviously, I can tell you're an optimistic man. Looking forward to the presidential election, do you think that a figure like, say, Ron DeSantis is where we should put our hope?
I think
are
that,
you a supporter?
I think that the conservative movement in the United States, and moving away slightly from actual sort of presidential politics and so on, but the conservative movement is very, very energized.
Right.
It's very strong and powerful in the United States, and it's going through a renaissance right now. And you mention a figure like Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, who's done a fantastic job in Florida. You have multiple across the United States, very successful conservative governors who are doing a tremendous job. And one thinks also of figures like Governor Abbott in Texas, for example. And there's a reason why Elon Musk has relocated his vast enterprises from California to Texas. It's because Texas is creating jobs based upon low taxes, limited government, free markets. And so you're seeing business relocating from left-wing states through to conservative states. And so, I'm very confident about the future of conservatism in America because there is so much energy there. And you see that, among the key governors, you see that among many members of Congress. You look at, I think the freshness of ideas that you see being generated by conservatives in Congress or in US think tanks or conservative grassroots organizations or at the state level, and there's a great deal of energy there. So yes, I'm optimistic. I mean, America is on its ropes. It's on the ropes at the moment. Some might say it's on its last legs as a result of being, dominated, subjugated by the far left. But my former boss Margaret Thatcher was relentlessly optimistic. And if you look at the state of Britain in the 1970s, the sick man of Europe, going with a begging bowl to the International Monetary Fund, 1977, 78. And I recall, a speech that Margaret Thatcher gave in 1977 to the Zurich Economic Forum, when Britain was regarded as absolutely, you know, bottom of the pile in terms of, you know, economic success and so on. She went to that forum. She told the assembled bankers and you know, economic leaders. She said that Britain would once again be a truly great economic powerhouse, a tremendous force for economic freedom. And she said, you know, Britain will be completely transformed based upon conservative free market ideas. And she was widely mocked. You know, all of the assembled, you know, elites thought this was completely ridiculous. Sure enough, you know, within a decade, Margaret Thatcher turned Great Britain around once again into a great economic force. Today, the UK is the world's 5th largest economy. The UK can be a tremendous success in the Brexit era. We have to have that spirit of optimism that Margaret Thatcher had. She defeated socialism. She defeated the evils of, you know, big government socialist ideology. She stood up to the trade unions. She faced them down. And she said that, you know, Great Britain will be once again, you know, a truly, you know, prosperous leading nation. And she was absolutely right. So I share that sense of optimism. I hope that will happen in America again. We badly need that optimism. That can only be delivered based upon, you know, in my view, conservative ideas and principles. Because look at how terrible the left has done running the White House, running you know, Congress.
It's just purely incompetent as well, isn't it?
They are staggeringly incompetent. You know, the Biden presidency, I think, has been the most incompetent, mismanaged presidency in U.S. history. You know, Biden makes comments and statements, you know, one day, and then the next day the White House will completely disavow them, and they say, "Oh, that's not White House policy. That's just the president, you know, having a say over things." And so the level of disorganization is absolutely shockingly bad.
I should mention, actually, you mentioned Margaret Thatcher, that you obviously were an advisor to her, weren't you? And she would talk and not hold back on what you might call, or what we now call, cultural issues. You know, like changing the spirit of the country. I was very interested that Oliver Dowden, who's now no longer in the government, but he came to your centre to give a speech.
Right.
And he was talking there about woke ideology, wasn't he? And things one sort of thought, oh, why couldn't you have made this in Britain? You know, because we just do not have people on a senior level, Tory or whatever, talking about these issues.
Yes.
And that is something which is really amiss. I mean, when you look at, I know you've just last night given a talk about this as well, but when you look at the situation now in Britain, do you have the same level of optimism in terms of, you know, you talk about a renaissance in republicanism. Do you see anything like that here?
You know, that's a great question. And as you mentioned, I hosted Oliver Dowden for a big speech, you know, back in the spring. And the speech was entitled "Defeating Council Culture." And his speech was, you know, widely condemned by, you know, the socialist left in Britain, including, you know, many prominent Labour MPs attacked it and so on. But I was struck as well by the level of support from British Conservatives who thought, you know, this is a really compelling message. We need to hear this more from British government officials. Oliver Dowden was the first British cabinet member to actually give a speech with this government, you know, attacking council culture, attacking, you know, the woke ideology, and I thought it was a very powerful address. We need to see a lot more of those. And I was very encouraged by the remarks made last week by Suella Braverman, the Attorney General, who spoke about the pride her family has in Great Britain and its history. And you know, I was you know, impressed by those remarks, because we need to hear a lot more of that. This is a truly great nation, Britain, with an illustrious history. We should all be proud of it. And you know, Britain's role in spreading freedom, liberty, democracy across the world has been, you know, absolutely was unparalleled in terms of Britain's role. You know, Britain's role in ending slavery is something we have to be hugely proud of. And the investment that Britain made, even fighting on the high seas against slaving, you know, ships and so on. You know, British history is something that you know, we should all be proud of. And it's encouraging to see now you have government ministers who are saying British people should take pride in British history. And also we're having, ministers attacking this deeply, in my view, is anti-British and anti-American cultural agenda. The whole woke ideology is fundamentally aimed at destroying the civilization that our forefathers, our ancestors, built, both sides of the Atlantic. They want to tear all this down. They hate everything the United States and Great Britain stand for. If the US and the UK didn't exist today, the world would be dominated by the likes of China or by Russia, dictatorships, tyranny. But because the US and the UK lead the free world, we're able to stand up to the forces of monstrous evil and tyranny. And if our great countries were not, on the world stage working together, I'd hate to think what kind of horrible world would replace it.
Yes. I think I'm very glad to hear you say that. I think that people, I would say, in the Conservative Party here, many of them still haven't quite gripped the extent of the danger of this attack. They still tend to think it's sort of political correctness gone mad.
It's
it's just they don't quite get it, and they've got to, I think.
It's, the significance is often downgraded, but let's make no mistake here. What the left want to achieve here is to tear down our civilization.
Yes, I completely agree.
And to undermine everything that our great countries stand for. And this is what woke ideology is all about. And it's it's also a culture of self-loathing that is so popular on the left. You see that in Britain's universities, America's universities, and let's defeat this, because it is so immensely destructive. Just
it's an interesting point, just for me, really. Who would you say, because obviously you're a scholar of American politics as well, do you have when was the last great president, do you think, for you? Who was in modern times, who's been the greatest figure, do you think?
I think that the greatest president that we've seen in modern American history, is without a doubt, President Reagan. I think Reagan's, vision for America was an immensely powerful vision. It was a relentlessly optimistic vision. His partnership with Margaret Thatcher, transformed the world and defeated the evil of Soviet tyranny. And Ronald Reagan, I think, was such a tremendous inspiration on so many levels. And somebody who really believed in what America is all about, as a nation based upon principles of freedom and liberty. And he was determined, of course, to ensure that America led on the world stage. I think that Ronald Reagan, right up there with Abraham Lincoln, really as tremendous inspiration. And let me also say this about, and I had the opportunity to meet with President Trump on a number of occasions in the White House, and President Trump and his administration, I think did a great deal as well to advance conservative ideas, principles, and you see that now with you look at the Supreme Court is actually in part a significant legacy of that administration, actually. And President Trump was a big supporter of Brexit. He was a big supporter of the US-UK special relationship. He stood shoulder to shoulder with the United Kingdom. I think that the last Republican administration did a great deal of good. Of course, relentlessly attacked by the left, but it fought in many arenas for conservative ideas and principles, so I think that many Republican presidents have done a great deal of good in modern history. I think that President Reagan certainly is the ultimate role model, the tremendous inspiration for all presidents, and of course we look back as well to figures such as Abraham Lincoln, and I never cease to be inspired by the Lincoln Memorial in Washington and what Lincoln achieved. This man ended slavery in the United States, a Republican president.
Yes, there was a BBC for once who did a pretty good job, I think, series about Reagan and Thatcher. Did you see that? Did you? Or? It was on quite recently.
I may have seen some of it, and it is good that the BBC actually acknowledges the achievements of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
Well, it was, but also it really did make one realise, because I was in my 20s throughout that time, the level of confidence, actually, and settled confidence, settled,
Yes.
When I say contentment, I don't mean complacency, but a sort of sense that actually we are good people, we are a good place. It is a land of freedom. Hugely attractive. I just more than anything would like to see that America return.
Yes,
I'm sure you would too.
Yes.
But
that shining city on a hill,
yes.
As Reagan used to say, quoting Winthrop, I think.
Yes.
So, we need to see that America. The left is doing all it can to tear that America down, but we need to see that America in place. The free world needs that America, as well.
Yes. Just one question, because a lot of people, before we leave it now, the Heritage Foundation. I know about it, but a lot of people weren't.
Yes.
But we are surrounded by think tanks here in Westminster. We're one. But of course, it's on a different scale entirely, is it not, in America? The Heritage Foundation is probably the biggest think tank, in America, so it's therefore the world, surely.
It's certainly the biggest conservative think tank in the world. And we have over 300 staff at Heritage. We're right in the heart of Capitol Hill. We are, approaching our, 50th anniversary very, very shortly, 2023. And so the Heritage Foundation it's also the biggest grassroots supported, public policy organisation in the United States with over 500,000 members. And it is an organisation that is all about advancing conservative ideas and principles. So we're not attached to any political party. We're independent of the party political process. In contrast, in Germany, for example, you will have think tanks that are funded by political parties and so on. The United States is very different.
Yes.
And so we are completely independent of any government or political organisation. We're all about advancing conservative ideas and principles, which we believe are absolutely necessary for a prosperous, safe, and secure America.
Yes. Well, I have to say, I've heard the Heritage Foundation referred to as almost an alternative university. That there comes a point where you stop being a think tank and you become a university. Thank you very much indeed.
It's a great pleasure, Peter. Thanks very much. Wonderful to be here today. And,
yes,
it's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much for coming. That's it for this week on So What You're Saying Is, and we shall look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, thank you. Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.